Y todo el mundo aquí suma, lo que soy mi gente suma, la energía que tú quieres suma, cuando bailas libre suma, yeah, dale sin miedo y suma, haz lo que tú quieres suma, las caras de mi gente suman, solo baila libre y suma, yeah, energía, yeah, energía, yeah, somos energía, yeah, energía, yeah, yeah.
Bacano cuando la buena energía de tu empresa nos conecta a todos.
Muy buenos días, señoras y señores. Soy Gonzalo.
Good morning, everybody. I am Gonzalo, leader of communications in Celsia. I welcome you to the conference of results of the third quarter of 2022. Today we have Ricardo Sierra and Esteban Piedrahita, financial leader of the company. Right now, all the participants are just listening as usual. We have reserved a space to solve your concerns at the end of the conference. The questions are habilitated for those of you who have connected with Zoom. This conference comes with English-Spanish interpretation. You can choose the language of your preference at the lower part of the screen. If you are using a cell phone, touch the screen and press plus button on your right-hand side and then select interpretation, select the language. And in both cases, if you don't want to listen to the background speaker, you can silence the original audio. Thank you very much for being connected to this teleconference. And Ricardo Sierra, Celsia leader. Good morning, Gonzalo. Good morning. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for all of you. Welcome to this results teleconference of the third quarter. We're going to make some adjustment to our format, and we're going to share what we have had in the regulatory entity, which I imagine that you are very interested in knowing about, and also to understand how we've been preparing from Celsia to operate in the following months, as we all know, are in the framework of uncertain macroeconomic uncertainty and volatility. We start referring to the national government call in joint activity with the authorities, and all the adjustments to the original agent. Celsia decided to adopt them. Likewise, we continued supporting the construction of sustainable ideas that benefit the clients and the country. In the Generation G, we had a voluntary negotiation of the contracts with a discount between 5.0 and 9.4% with an adjustment in the index for a year to the minimum between IPC and IPP. This is very important. There is a reduction of the rate and the index has changed, which it benefits all our clients to whom we sell energy. In regard to the fee T, we adjusted to the established conditions with a reference period, which was December 2020, which implies a reduction of 20% of what we charge for the index, for the component T of the rate. And the distribution component in the voluntary adjustment in the rate that we use, we went to October 2021, reaching a reduction of 8.3%. That allows us to have a roof in the increases of the applied rate of IPC plus 0.3%. All these reductions are going to be moved 100% to our clients between the months of November and December. And we expect that after the accumulated reduction of both months, our rates of the departments of Tolima and Valle are going to be reduced between 5 and 15%. This varies a lot depending on the particularity and the markets, and also different factors that are included in the rate that we expect to be established in these months. These decisions that benefit our clients represent an effort on behalf of Celsia that if we project it in the following 12 months, it is going to be a reduction of about 100,000 million pesos. So that is not a minor effort, it's a very important effort. Sorry, a compliment, Richard, and to all of you. Those 100,000 million is about stable prices of 2022. So then we're going to have the other process, the index processes, let's say, that at the end, with a weighted average. So it is 100,000 as having consistent, constant prices. So like the IPP and the IPC continue being the same for the rest. And these are for the current contracts. Once we start with the new contracts of energy that we have in both markets that also are a lower price of what we had in 2022, let's say that the clients are going to see also a situation, a better situation. The application of this scheme, the reduction of the rate, is the result of the dialogue between the companies, the guilds of the electrical sector, the Ministry of Mines and Energy, and the CREG, which allows us to solve this business issue in the increase of rates and to alleviate the pockets of the consumers. And in the context of the high inflation, in the framework of institutionality, we aim to find this benefit and the need to assure the resources to maintain and strengthen the grid, to increase the coverage and improve the quality of the service for Colombians, and to maintain the basic service of a financial sufficiency, which is the pillar of Law 142 and 43 of 1994. Now, I would like to mention precisely the evolution of the quality of the service in our operation areas. As a result of the investments that we have made in this front, we have got this year in Valle del Cauca SAIDI of 6.7 hours, which we are improving in because from last year, because it is an indicator of excellence in the country, probably the best in the country, and we are improving 1% in regard to last year. And the SAIDI is 4.4 times, improving it 12.5%. In Tolima, where we have worked strongly improving the quality in these 3 years, the interruptions is 27.7. It is improving almost 14% this year. I remind you that we are about half to these indicators facing what we received in 2019. So the improvement is a substantial improvement in Tolima in this indicator, and the interruption frequency, we are in 14 times. So we are improving 31%. This is also greater than what we received. So truly, the quality in Tolima is evident thanks to the Celsia team and the investment that we have made. There is a topic that is very important for us, which is the PQR, complaints and grievances. We have the winter, basically, the rainy season that has affected the country has hit us in Valle and Tolima very strongly. Nevertheless, the indicator of satisfaction, the NPS, continues to be greater than 35 times, which is a little lower than what we had last year, but in a level which is about 3 times greater than the average of the last companies in the sector. Let's move to the investment platforms. Tesorito, the gas support plant that gives flexibility to our generation, started operations last September 14. This project was made with Proeléctrica and Canacol, an investment of over $210 million to have today a plant with 200 megawatts of reliable power. This plant has a very efficient technology, but it has a low emission technology, and it covers the variability of the renewable non-conventional like sun and aeolic power. It is going to be a very important support to the imminent and near El Niño phenomenon, which we expect to be a reality in the next 2 or 3 years. It is important to mention that in the capital structure of Tesorito, and given its revenue for reliability, we reach a debt of 80% with a very competitive rate in this volatile financial market. We are at a rate of 6.8% in dollars, which is a fixed rate, which is very important. We don't have any index issues with the debt of this beautiful project. The hard debt has a natural coverage since Teyorito receives income indexed in dollars. So we have a debt with a very competitive rate that is fully organized, and besides that, it's match income and expense in dollars. Tesorito, it was proposed to be a generator of development for the region, as we mentioned from Celsia, and in Sahagún has done many things in environment and social issues. Paid of the access road, free internet for Laureles area, and we continue with school packages per year. We have the park concession, and we are starting now with the construction of the aqueduct construction and the construction of the school, among many other activities that we've been developing. But we believe that the main one was the generation of more than 1,000 jobs in the construction peak, and that one sees reflected in the quality of the constructions and quality of life and opportunities that we have generated to those towns. In the platform in grayscale in solar energy, we continue growing with 9 solar farms, and we estimate there, the generation of 3,500 jobs in the construction stage. Let's remember that the last farm was implemented this year in the first quarter of 19.9 megawatts. This is the first one with a tracker systems. It's a panel that can be moved to take advantage of the slope that captivates better radiation and improves its performance. This installment has an investment of $20 million, and we generated more than 400 jobs, which 10% of them were women. A very important parenthesis here, the internet business, which there are more than 34,000 clients that are connected with our services in Tolima. We are closing to 40,000 clients at the end of the year. We've been building more than 400,000 kilometers of fiber optic, and we have KPIs extraordinary that when we compare them with the competitors of the sector, we are making a difference in those towns. We have 99 accumulated availability, and there is a social component, very beautiful, that every fiber optic that it is coming across of public schools in Tolima and Valle, we are connecting it for free with huge capacities. We have 103 public schools connected for free, and we are benefiting more than 53,000 students. This is very beautiful that we have accomplished to have social value. We want to share with you that the centrals in Panama, which belongs to AAS, had an issue that has this generation plan off for several months. It has affected us since the generation in Dos Mares that receives water from that comes after going through the plant generation. It has brought to us the flow in our hydroelectric central, and we're implementing emergency solutions to recover the greatest number of water and generate the greater amount of energy. That since this plant is going to be offline, we are doing all the claims with the insurers and the market. Esteban, good morning. Let's talk about the best results, financial results in this report. As always, I remind you that the detailed analysis of the results statement and the financial information, it can be consulted in the report to the website for investors. In the third quarter of the accumulated figures. In the third quarter, the consolidated revenue added 1.3 billion, representing 33% growth in regards to last year. Operations in Colombians reached 1.16 billion, representing 89.5% of the total, and Central America, 136 million, which represents a little more than 10.5%. Revenue in Colombia were promoted mainly by the generation and commercialization wholesales in contracts spot, with an increase of gigabytes, and in the detail in the retailer, and also in the grid connection in the commercial action, with a higher index and regulatory WAC and IPP. In Central America, revenue increased due to a greater hydraulic generation in regards to the same quarter last year. And also we have a favorable effect with a better exchange rate. Sales costs were of 900,000 million pesos, which is 33% more than the prior quarter, which is explained mainly due to a higher selling cost, transportation, fixed materials, maintenance, and associated costs to the mass transport and insurance project. Transportation in Bogotá that we are in this quarter, we implemented the service in a cargo station in Bogotá for Transmilenio. The variable costs were 632 million, with an increase of 39%, and the fixed missions 268 million, with an increase of 20%. Administrative costs increased 12%. They reached 86,200 million, mainly due to greater general expenses and major depreciations and amortizations. EBITDA in the quarter was 424, with an increase of 34%, due to the margin of positive contribution in all segments to the major commercialized energy and infrastructure in disposition to our clients. Very important here, we have the fundamental event of this exercise, which is the net financial expenses and the difference in change, 136 million, with an increase of 68,000 million of pesos, facing the reference quarter, which half of the 34,000 million correspond to the increase of the index in the last year in IPC as IBR. In the last year, we have had a storm due to the pandemic, the supply chain fall, the war in Ukraine, the inflation in the United States, and Europe has had an increase that we have seen in the last 30 or 40 years. And our country has also been part of that behavior. So inflation in this restriction policy is what has made its tax and inflation with these results in the financial expenses. We have had that increase in the exchange rate. Since these results don't show the 5,000 pesos that we have seen, they show an increase in the exchange rate that is important. Our credit cost has increased at least twice in regards to last year, only because of the index. And we also see some pressure in the express with the restrictions of Basilia for the three banks. This has generated a very important increase in the financial expense of the company, as I mentioned earlier. Taxes in the consolidated profit were 61,000 million. They grew 28% due to the nominal tax and profit of 20,000 regards. The effective profit is in high rank. We had a positive contribution for the consolidated profit of 111,000 million, with a growth of 6.4%. We see here that the fact that we are growing positively in our revenue and EBITDA lines, they are needed to absorb those negative effects of the increases in taxes and rates, and gives us a positive growth, but very far from those 33, which is 5.6%. The 87,000 million profit, which is also pushed by that Central American push. In the debt, the company closed with the quarter with a 5.64 billions, with a leverage very healthy of 3.12 of net debt in EBITDA, and the mid-life is at 5.655 years. Out of those 5.64 near to of that total in pesos, to the effect of consolidation of the Central American debt. We closed the quarter with a consolidated draw of 208 million. As you can see, it is a very good quarter. Financially wise, we are consolidating a closure of the year very good financially, added to the dynamic of the company in the investment fronts, in quality, customer service, and all the initiatives that we've been developing. But there is something that you all are concerned, and it is the effect of tax reform. We have prepared a package to see the different points of the tax reform that can affect us, and we are still in the consolidation effects of figures that in some months we're going to be able to provide some more details with the regulations, and once we know what's issued. I don't know if you know, with the votes of the chamber yesterday, if everything is ready, if we have some ideas clear of what can affect us. So we're going to share some of them very clearly. I believe that we're going to see the analysis is not far from the analysis that most of the people that follow us are doing. What we can see fundamentally are issues that can imply the business affectation, saving and investment, fundamentally, precisely in a time when we need to implement macroeconomics to generate reliability in the country and definitely. Our concern is the income tax, several chapters in regards to income tax. The first thing, of course, is the depuration, the possibility of eliminating, about having that as a discount. And we retook the treatment, the historic treatment of deduction, limited, overcharge of electrical generation with hydric sources equivalent to 3% for 2023 to 2026. In particular, we're reviewing that very well for the drafting that it hasn't been, it is very complex due to the implementation for the companies as us who have incomes of different types of activities. The discount of 30% is increased, 30% of the discount in investments of science and technology, but it was eliminated, a very important part of the benefit of investment and innovation, which was the reduction via accelerated depreciation, which doesn't recompensate the increase in the discount. And we are having a reduction in that incentive to invest in something so important for the country, for its progress, which is science and technology. In addition to that, it's a pity because, many of us in the company have provided a lot of resources in those activities, and we continue believing that it is fundamental for the energy transition. We increased the occasional profit in 5%, 5 points, as a general factor that implements us. And the last one that we are reviewing is the minimum tax rate, which cannot be lower than 15%, or we have to have an alternative calculation to pay an additional tax. Our major concern that we need to understand well is the text, is that we don't see the extract of the depuration assessment with important figures as the 1715. And in addition to that, also we have benefits, the concurrences of the exempted income and constitution, and the reduction of the taxing rate in tax. This last one can affect investment, as we mentioned, in the energy transition. we mentioned, the reform is not explicit to the benefits of the law 1715, but we know that the measurement can affect those investments, particularly the minimum rate of tax, and eventually an interpretation, a further interpretation of some of the benefits that are included there to be considered as concurrent. In regards to the dividend tax, the dividends paid by natural people were distributed as non-recorded. Now they're going to have a progressive rate from 0 to 39% with an income tax applicable of 20% after 41 million pesos for shareholders, not residents, in the rate of the dividend non-fixed, it is going to be 20%, which today is in 10%. And for the legal entities, the withhold tax of the dividends paid is going to be 10%, which now is 7.5. And for foreign companies, the rate is going to increase from 10 to 20%. These are just in the chapter of the legal, also, natural people tax is very relevant since the reform is also talking about the exempted revenue, which are going to affect investment, for example, savings as housing. This is our first overview. It's important to see the conciliated text from the Chamber of Representatives of the Senate and any regulatory issues. We have to see it very cautiously, mainly the effects in future investments on the transition. Yes, thank you, Esteban. I believe that's a very important step to familiarize our shareholders with the effects that we may have. We're going to see a little bit about the analysis about the index of the profit in these taxes and expenses. Regardless of that evolution that we had with the shareholders, nevertheless, the macroeconomic conditions locally are just starting to have effects in the results. What we are doing in Celsia, you can be sure that we're going to continue doing a very good analysis in regards to the profitability that we need to assure and how to assure the projects that are now, in the Q&A session, we can give more detail, but we need to know how to serve in these uncertain times until we get stability. We want, as you all know, to continue being a sustainable company in the long term, committed with this energy transition and focus in clients and communities where we operate. Also, we announce or we share with you that for a few months, we've been developing a plan that we call a conscious austerity, that basically we're optimizing and looking for OPEX reductions in the costs and expenses of the company. We are having an index work, eliminating a reduction of activities that don't have in jobs. We are trying to have that these measures not to affect employability, but we have focused that these financial costs that are quite high in the market, not to reduce enough banking funding for our CapEx needs. That is of work. That is our objective. Any project that we may have in the future now has to be hand in hand with a financial closure. We need to understand with our financial funders. Also, we need to have to make sure that all the cost TRMs, new kinds of social environmental issues, the impact of this tax reform to be in that cocktail, to make sure that the profitability of those projects to be the appropriate one, and the clients to accept those new values, and to have signals with a very important, which is the regulatory sign of regulatory stability, and also in the game, in the rules of the game, to continue with the capital. So like that, in this environment, challenging environment, we continue analyzing it to see how to break the different alternatives to create value. In addition to close, in this last quarter, we get an approval of works for taxes, 71 million pesos in 11 projects in roads, education, and environmental services payment in 16 municipalities of the country, located in the departments of Antioquia, Sucre, Valle, Tolima, and Cauca. In these projects, they are, excuse me, I lost my voice. These projects are added to the executed projects since 2017 for a value greater than 100 million, benefiting more than 110,000 people in 27 municipalities. This is the end of our report. So, Gonzalo and Esteban, we are ready for receiving questions that may take place. Thank you very much. Okay, Ricardo, this is the space that we have for Q&A. All concerns, doubts that you may have. There is one from Catherine Ortiz from Da Vivienda. Catherine says, good morning. Can you share the estimate detail by business for the regulation in energy rates and the tax reform? Yes, Catherine. We did a description in the email also with Chucho. You are in the script, and we can, the summary is very clear in the different components in the reduction. So if you want to, we can make a review of that script. In the generation, we made some reductions of 24% for the regulated clients. And then also we said the index to be between IPC and IPP, the lower between them.
Hicimos una reducción del equivalente al 12%.
In transmission charges, a reduction of 20%. And in distribution, we made a reduction, which can be 8.3%. And the roof for the increase in fee is going to be the IPC plus 0.3. Just to give an idea in our markets, because we have 1.3 million homes, a reduction in Valle del Cauca of about 5%. And in Tolima, it can be to about 15% in the reduction to our clients. Very good, Ricardo.
También pueden hacer las preguntas en vivo, simplemente nos levantan la mano y con mucho gusto les abrimos el micrófono para que puedan.
You can also make live questions, just raise your hand. Celsia Segura, it says, are you concerned about the inflation impact in associated costs in the construction of new solar projects, and what kind of leverage can we use for 2022 and 23, and how do you see the due debt in 2023 in the tool of financial? Okay, I can share with you about the impacts that we have seen in regards to funding and cost, and Esteban can share with us about what we're seeing for 2023. In the exchange rate of 5,100, it affects the business cases. In addition to that, the funding cost in Colombian pesos, we are talking about funding close to 20%, which also affects our business cases. We are placing everything in on the design table, recalculating, renegotiating with suppliers, looking at design issues that we can redesign to see how they affect in the prices that we offer of energy to the projects, to the clients, and the cost that we're going to have to cover the clients to be reasonable, to be good. The news today are not the best, but in a solar typical business, we are having an increase between 20 and 30% of the energy costs that we had for the project to get the same or appropriate profitability levels. We are working on that. There is going to be an effect very clearly with these exchange rates. There are going to be increases that the cost, the prices of energy are going to be greater for the new projects, and surely this is going to affect in the midterm projects that take 2, 3, 4, 5 years for the kickoff. We are going to see here an affectation. There is just to complement. It is about what it is important about the macroeconomic stability that we have insisted for Colombia. We said the impact is we expect it to be a short-term impact, and we're starting seeing it in the raw materials that we import. There is an important growth, for example, in the solar panels in dollars, but it is going to be an impact. And we see that it is an impact as the prices are now going back to what we had pre-pandemic, but unfortunately, the prices in Colombia, no. So in the measure that Colombia can be placed in that path, I think we can do good, bad. It is our task as the country to do that diligently. And also the transportation cost has lowered a lot. Yes, totally. From 4,000 and now we're going to about 2,500, which was the cost of the container. So see that this is very interesting. In one part, costs lower, but the exchange rate goes up, but also in terms of design, cost of panels and technology, we have to find the break point. As good business people, we don't shrink. We try to find for the formula to continue making the businesses, the projects, and close all the points that are difficult. But here, we like to work and find the break point, and also the growth that we have for next years in Esteban. I believe there are good news. Yes, we're working very strongly on that. That is the second part of the question. The 3.2 of EBITDA debt is very good indicator, and a mid debt of 5.65 is a very good indicator. But actually, from that perspective, we are at peace. We are working on our interest, as Richard said. We want to be the best, cautious, discipline, that it is not the same year as those 2 years in which we were able to grow aggressively. Probably this is going to be a cautious year, but fortunately, we have been able to carry out the performance in the last years and continues to be a strong and solid business. We're very well prepared to overcome this uncertainty in the short term without sacrificing, we expect, those growth options. That's our exercise, and we expect the exchange not to change in the next months and to improve midlife, but to be ready since we want to be a macroeconomic stability to come back and to be able to. So we have some compliance with commercial banks. We have some debts that are going to be due soon, but we are getting very good feedback from banking and also credit lines for Plan B, additional credit lines that it was announced as relevant information for this year, that we have a credit line of 50,000 million pesos, which actually it covers almost all the due balance for what is coming for this lending. So we're preparing very well, being a very good partner of our financial partners, because we work hand in hand. And another important thing, the question, the stability, the risk changing in our debt position, we explained with the Tesorito, but could you please explain our China exposition that we have? No, because we talked about it a lot. All our increase, it is due to the debt in Central America. All our debt is in dollars. In that 564 figure, all that belongs. All that belongs to. We don't have a mismatch in our debt and our revenue source. Okay, thank you very much, Esteban and Ricardo. Ana Huasca from the Davienda Correos, thank you very much for the presentation. The first question in regards to the tax reform, what's going to be the impact of the financial results of the reform? And the second debt is, what is the percentage of debt that it is in dollars? Well, the second one, we already answered it. In the first one, the Andy didn't do a good work. What we are seeing and excluding is that we are seeing very well about the approval of that is, the over fee. We are seeing an increase of 300 basic points. If we see it in the income of 2021, which was the last one that was published, that is about 20,000 million pesos in taxes, which is pretty much what we got every year, in the calculations that was going to be communicated. Like, that's correct. So we are talking about 300 basic points, qualitative issues that are going to affect. So when we have investment taxes in solar, eolic, and this renewable energy, non-conventional, the minimum fee of rate of 15% limits the early adoption of the law 1715, which is the benefits with that type of investments. Also, there is an effect that it is weighted in the project that in the effect that we have in the result statements day by day. And I thank you for the invitation to the Davienda event that you made, for the launching of the very good book that you published. Catherine Ortiz, also from the Davienda, she's raised her hand. If you can prepare your microphone.
Hola.
Hello. Yes.
¿Cómo están? Muchas gracias a todos. Ricardo, Esteban, buenos días y pues todos buenos días.
Thank you, everybody. Ricardo and Esteban, good morning. Esteban, I would like to retake again the question of the regulation, because I know that we were told, about impacts in the reduction of the rates, and also that incomes could be reduced in about 100,000 million. But I don't know if you can be more detailed about in that report, in regards to distribution, about 100,000 million, what is the equivalence to distribution and generation, and to have more details. And also, if you have that information in regards to EBITDA or net profit.
Los 100,000 millones es muy fácil.
The 100,000 million correspond to the generation of the business and correspond to the that is the discussion that we're having. We don't manage more descriptions because the commercializer goes of the 15,000 in the generation business and 85,000 in the generation business. How much it affects us in EBITDA and net profit? On the base, I want to repeat, these are figures and adjustments to August 2022, in which we have an index. We have September index and we have October index with the figures that you have already seen. So one says, what can represent in current prices? That is a lower figure than what we have in the 12 months, which was lower than 100,000 for the investment. Is natural effect of the business. But if you want to say it in those 100,000, is a direct impact. What is the total debt? If it is represented, it's going to be lower than what it was. It must be something around 3% of those 100,000. Thank you, Esteban.
Bueno, démosle la palabra entonces, gracias Caterina, a ti, a Juan José Muñoz.
Juan José Muñoz, you've got the roof. Juan José, please.
Para preguntar.
Open your mic.
Hola Esteban y Ricardo, ¿cómo están? Gracias por el espacio.
Esteban and Ricardo, Thank you for the space. Good morning. A question that now Ricardo mentioned.
¿Cómo lo están viendo ustedes para el 2023 2024?
How do you see it? It's about the phenomenon of La Nina, you know, the different possibilities that are that to be extended to February or March 2023 with 60%. So I would like to see with you how you are seeing this issue and if you see levels of generation of hydro generation in Colombia very similar to what we have seen in the last quarters for 2023. Thank you. Juan Jose, thank you. How are you? I can share with you that the probability of El Nino are always take place in cycles of 5, 10 years, and we already have 7 years, you know, of Nino phenomenon. And statistically, in the measure that we are coming close to the year 10, the probability of the next year to have a Nino phenomenon is 100%. That's why now we made the reference that there is going to be a drought period in the next 2-3 years. Yes or yes, that is something that our people are sharing with us with the forecasts. That's why we are alert with this, with a complex particularity of the market today. One will say, look, we have hired our energy today, the production, mid-production of energy in the year. Typically, we are hiring between 65 and 85% that is being hired. So our clients don't have the volatility of the market prices that we have on a daily basis. The problem that I want to highlight to you is that the prices that we have today in the different energy generation sources in the country are very distant. Today, the generation of hydroelectrics, when we want to save water, one saves the water in the sense that we make the offer of that resource at a cost high enough not to dispatch it so that we can save it for the summer, for the drought. And the generation typically was the coal or gas, and those prices came at 200, 250 pesos in the past, and today they are entering at 450, 500 pesos because coal is very expensive, gas is expensive, dollar that affects both of them, both those energetics doesn't help either. So we have, unfortunately, in this moment, a market in the stock market, volatile, with a characteristic that what we had with the big projects delayed in the generation has increased. So to kill that urban myth is not to have dams where we can have water all over the year. There is only multi-annual dam. I believe that there are 2 or 3 that are semestral, and the other dams, you know, if we start them, you know, in months or weeks, they're going to be depleted. So it is important to have a diversified matrix with all the schemes to face that Niño phenomenon that it is facing and coming up soon. And Juan Jose, we have to continue having a matrix with a gas generation as the one that we are implementing here. And we need to continue exploring gas to continue having that energy to at a lower and economic prices, not to affect the electrical energy rates in the country. In the live, I'm going to give you some important figures. When I started in the business, Santiago, you know, Santiago, please help me so that, you know, the source, 75 pesos, that was, how much to generate today? We are 5,000 for everything. We are in 100. So just 0.25 to make, but now we are at 100. So there are many things. And the second figure that I will share, we all are born with the supposition that the Niña, 100% of the energy came for water. Fortunately, our country hasn't stopped growing, and that affirmation, that statement is not true anymore. all the wealth that we have is not enough in a single day. Thank you, Ricardo Esteban. One long answer for a short question. Yes, we gave the opportunity. Yes. Lucas Carvajal, what do we have for an increase greater than 15% salary increase? What is the question like?
Pues mira, nosotros tenemos
we have a great component of index in the IPC or IPP. So we expect that component finally to be adjusted a lot. We have many contracts where we have a great component of cooperation of the increase of the minimum salary. So in that concept, we're going to have an increase. What we're going to see is that we have austerity issue to reduce costs that are not going to be essential to provide services, to any effect that we may have, that increase of the minimum salary, not to. But we have a challenge as a company, and we have an imbalance that we need to compensate. I don't know, Esteban, if you want to complement. No, totally agree. Is to curb the inflation. To have the inflation to be lower. That is the higher tax that we pay. But this company has a privileged position that all its incomes are indexed to IPC, most of them. So that is a natural coverage, quite big. Very well. Roberto Paniagua, next, what is your question live? Roberto, please. Good morning. Could you please confirm that you are listening to us well? Very well, Roberto. Good morning, Ricardo, and all the team. Thank you for the results, for all the information that you provided us with, very useful for our analysis in the mid-term. I have two brief questions. If you can share a little bit about the 5-year plan, 24, 28, 28. You mentioned about that is the first question, and the second one I read in the media about a project in the CREG about changes in the operation of transactions of energy in the stock market. What comments can you make? Very well. About the 5-year plan, effectively, we are working on the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan is impacted for this cautious exercise that we've been talking about in the framework of the current regulation. We have some minimums to invest, which is 5% of the regulatory stage. What happens is that we have ways of modulating some years. We are working to see how we can make these assets available in the process. We continue working our closure here to have an approximation in the grid where it's going to be moderated in the short term, in the minimum regulatory, and in a world of cautious world that we say that finally is going to benefit also costs for the mid-term raise. And in regards to the regulation that Roberto said, there are very important things, which is like the everyday dispatch. There are issues that are going to give us very interesting topics to modern and optimize the market. But there is one that concerns us the small centrals, or what it is above whatever is lower 20 megawatts, it is dispatched not centrally, and it has some benefits, and that those type of investments were being affected if that is going to be included in that dispatch standard. It might kill the generation, the investment in new centrals of small format, and the PCH in the hybrid topic. The last that is going to be built because the imbalance of what we have seen the last years has been very difficult. So the PCH and the small solar centrals and small eolic centrals that may exist has to be protected, and hopefully to get that out of that document of ideas that come in that resolution. That is the major concerns in that topic. We are making comments, but we believe that there are many good things for the market in the same. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you. Next, a question in the chat. Good morning. What do you expect from the exchange rate in 2023? No, well, that one, you know, that is very good. You know, as we say here, we're going to see what we can get. We expect, you know, the same like everybody. You know, volatility is very difficult to read where it aims. It is going to depend enormously from the decisions to be made in the short term that our government makes to get that discipline, that tax discipline that we need, and that discipline as a country for the flight to quality that we are seeing, that it is in the whole market, not to continue being, you know, as we have seen in the country. There are some dynamics with Twitter issues, you know, that not to continue scaring people. But I can say something. We don't control volatility.
Controlamos porque lamentablemente pues eso.
We leave it but don't control it because this is out of the hands of the business people.
Nosotros antes tomamos decisiones de.
But it is in our hands that we can contribute in a project. We knew the reference exchange rate 3 months ago was 4,000. Now we're talking about 5,000. If we had made decisions 3 months ago, we would be in problems. For several months, we made the decision to condition all our offers to a exchange rate. We are making a very intense work with the financial team to assure the financial resource and to assure the cost of dollar of imports of the equipment. So everything is matched for our new projects. This is very important for you to consider it, and the investment that we have done in the day by day of transformators, the cable of the day by day in those homes in Valle Tolima is indexed to IPP. That IPP collects the exchange rate effects as well. As a company, is the way that we are facing that volatility, hopefully to be the lower, the minor, and to be cheaper. You know, that's what we. Thank you very much. There is another one of. There are some elements that have already been answered, but it is important to reply. How does Celsia plan to board this aspect? You know, the competition of the renewables is bigger. Facing the market, what is the strategies and strategical is boarding in, you know, the space minimum salary. The other one is the competence in renewables. The competence in renewables because it is bigger, and how we are facing with the strategies to the clients that we're boarding, and how we are seeing the profitability, how we are managing volatility in raw materials and TRM. And it is important to see that competence of renewables. Perfect. Okay, the increase of the minimum salary, obviously, you know, through the guilds that represent us, there is a work that is being done in those discussion tables of the minimum salary, and we expect that for the best decision to be made for the country. But in regards to the company, today we have some collective agreements where we have basically indexed to the minimum salary plus 1.2 percentage points, the increase of our costs, labor costs. Many of the costs with the suppliers are indexed to IPC. We are speaking to many of our suppliers to see how we can turn the contracts, how to evaluate, you know, simplification, and how we can do things differently for these effects to be the lower. This in the chapter of effects of inflation of the minimum salary. In renewable competences, it's important to mention that we have a renewable world in small scale. We have a partner which is called Cubica, is a chapter of what we can do. And with Cubico, we were a few weeks ago what we are doing in the region in Colombia, and actually, you know, what is happening, and they are very enthusiastic and prudent to continue investing in Colombia. We have the purpose that continue being, you know, a renewable project. The consequence, you know, as a result of what is happening and the effect of this tax reform is going to affect small players or new incomers. Those are the ones that are going to be affected a lot, but we trust to be compatible. We welcome competence, which is the best thing to give value or client in Colombia, and we believe that we have a leadership position in the market. Very good. Okay, we go to a live question of Ashmore. Sebastián, continue with the question. Good morning. Good morning. Very good presentation. The answers so far. I want to ask you from our part a little bit about a follow-up of some of the prior questions in regards to CapEx. You have spoken about that you're going to be cautious, but can we identify how potentially we can decelerate the investments in the next quarters, depending on the investment pace that you have so far, just to see the figures clearer in regards to how much it can be decelerated, that investment in the next quarters as a product of the uncertainty. The second question that I make has to do with the return, if we consider of that cocktail, as Ricardo mentioned it, of interest rates and IPM. The returns that you are reaching, how much, what is the return? That is another question.
Un poco ese impacto inicial de la reforma por lo que inicialmente se reconoce por impuestos diferidos cada vez que hay cambios en las tarifas de impuestos.
Every time that there are changes in tax index, 3% of the overcharge. For you to tell us about what it is less of how much you are able to yield in those aspects. In that regard, it would be welcome. Thank you, Sebastián, for important questions and interesting questions. We can board them one by one. The first one is about the CapEx. I'm going to reply generally and to see if you can share more. We have a CapEx that mandatory we have to do on an everyday thing. Is the CapEx of the providing a service to those homes and the investments that we have to do in our centrals, in the hydroelectric, solar, aeolic, and thermic that we have. It's a CapEx that we have that you can modulate for a greater maintenance. So you can have some reduction of the maintenance, but to take it in a very technical way. But these are values that can be maintained. The regulatory CapEx, that is what was in a question that Esteban was answering. Typically, we have to invest between 5 and 8% of the regulatory base of assets. We are placed with an investment of about 5% of that, eventually less, because we have an advantage in quality very big that gives us that flexibility. I don't know, Esteban, if you could quantify that or think about it later. I would prefer to have a very good estimate of what we have for 2023, but the question is what we have invested in the last 4 years in the business to curb the quality, near to 7-8%, since the regulation mandates 5%. So we trigger to affect it. To quantify, you know, I really would like to make the exercise with a day-to-day more certain. Facing the
Las condiciones para hacer CAPEX de expansión es la primera que
to have the expansions, it is
¿cuáles son las señales de estabilidad regulatoria?
what is the regulatory small and to continue in the first semester projects that we had.
En fases de preparación, pero no vamos a arrancar como lo teníamos pensado hace unos meses.
What we had a few months earlier. It is affected by a signal, a regulatory signal, as PCH. The second issue, financial closures. For example, in the solar businesses, where we have B2B businesses with companies, I don't know, Levapam, Soya, that are our clients, that we are building solar farms. Those projects are funded today. For funding of the renewable chapters, we need to have abundant source, which is very pretty. So we are closing the numbers, the availability, to see what type of projects are affected.
De Esteban,
it's in
que tengamos el underwriting financiero, que tengamos claridad en la cadena de suministro.
To have clarity in the supply chain, and finally to have the regulatory acts to be good to start. The second question of the cocktail, in returns, we talk about the friction and our WACC, because it is a very interesting question that we have managed to maintain the cap, but we have seen pressures in the cost, in Colombia cost, that has increased a lot. Two important things for the conversation, because we have to continue with another question that we had here.
Nosotros nunca hemos sido una compañía de valorar proyectos de infraestructura de largo plazo con condiciones coyunturales. ¿Cierto? Esa nunca ha sido nuestra aproximación. Sería la aproximación más irresponsable que podríamos hacer. Entonces, así como digo que no lo hacíamos en el pasado.
So as we said that we didn't say
puntos básicos la valoración de tasa de largo plazo. Tampoco creo que serían las condiciones remanentes. ¿Qué hemos visto? Entonces, por ejemplo, hemos visto en el WACC se nos ha subido producto de la...
The WACC has been increased as a result of what we are seeing in the cost of debt. It has increased a lot. It has increased 200 points.
Algo en los spreads de corto plazo, pero sobre todo por el IBR y el IPC. El caso B también nos ha venido subiendo por las condiciones macro, donde yo creo que la más duradera en el largo plazo es la política de tasa de Estados Unidos, pues que esa es la que más nos mueve ese piso del caso B. No obstante, como decía Richard, hemos logrado defender nuestro roce en términos de proyectos que nos crean valor, de todo nuestro enfoque en los clientes, en ser muy eficientes, y hemos logrado mantener una distancia más o menos de 200 puntos básicos en nuestra medición de roce. Teníamos 250 y hemos perdido como 50, pero digamos que seguir estando en 200 puntos básicos por encima es algo muy importante para esa rentabilidad futura y para ese estar preparados para el futuro. Pero vuelvo, insisto, nunca le pedíamos el 8 a un proyecto y creo que hoy tampoco vamos a pedir un 30. Hay que pedir una cosa que sea coherente con un activo que va a durar los próximos 30 años.
Así es. Perfecto. El impacto del impuesto diferido.
Impuesto diferido, esa está muy buena, Sebastián. Me vas a hacer destapar las cartas de mi conversación de este trimestre. No necesariamente lo vemos porque el impuesto diferido, como bien lo dices, hace referencia a la tasa de renta, a la tasa efectiva, a la tasa de tributación, pero en una duración de largo plazo. La sobretasa como salió, además de los temas de interpretación de uno no sabe cómo calcula ese ejercicio, es una vigencia de solo 3 años. Entonces ahí tenemos un trabajo que tendremos que hacer con nuestros revisores fiscales y nuestros equipos técnicos de determinar si hay o no hay lugar al impuesto diferido por el hecho de que la sobretasa es una sobretasa de corto plazo.
Así es. No, y un poquito de la filosofía y cómo viene la conversación con el ministerio. Para darte un poquito de color en eso, Sebastián. Mira, yo creo que lo de la revisión del indexador en las tarifas, que fue un acto, la verdad les digo, pues que nace de una conversación intensa con el gobierno, con el ministerio, con la CREC y con todos los actores que tenemos que ver en el mercado, tanto los generadores, los distribuidores, los transmisores, todo el mundo. Pues fue una conversación pues muy intensa, pero que al final se logra llegar a un consenso en donde hay una aceptación de la medida para el beneficio de todos los colombianos. Entonces yo creo que ahí las posiciones que estuvieron un poquito alejadas al principio y que generaron mucha preocupación, se lograron llegar a puntos que en el fondo era un gana-gana para todos. ¿Qué ha seguido pasando a raíz de todo esto? Yo creo que el gobierno nacional y especialmente el viceministerio de Energía nos ha estado invitando a diálogo, a llevar ideas, a discutir propuestas y a hablar sobre los problemas que siguen aquejando al sector, reconociendo que este sector ha logrado muchísimo en los últimos 30 años, que tiene una institucionalidad fuerte y que le ha permitido a Colombia en los últimos 30 años, pues lo que ustedes conocen, que no ha habido racionamiento y los 20 años antes de la ley hubo 3 racionamientos, que antes de la ley 142-143 casi el 25% de los hogares de Colombia no tenían energía eléctrica. Hoy solamente hay un 5% de hogares que no tienen energía eléctrica, que es que hay que llevarle la energía eléctrica, sí, que hay que hacer ese trabajo, sí, pero no haciendo ni desconociendo una institucionalidad que se puede ir reformando dentro de los mismos esquemas que tiene para generar inversiones. Y te cuento un dato muy impresionante, Sebastián, y es que cuando tú miras, este sector le costaba al país el 30% de su endeudamiento en el 92. Este sector era el gasto principal del presupuesto general de la nación. Y hoy en día, después de esas leyes, se invirtieron 30 billones de dólares en Colombia y generan casi 8 billones de pesos en impuestos al año. O sea, hoy somos el 6-7% de los impuestos que recaudan. Este es un sector, el eléctrico, súper relevante, súper importante, con 10 billones de dólares en los próximos 10 años de inversión, al 2030. Así que es un sector que yo creo que el ministerio y el gobierno están entendiendo la importancia de que siga la estabilidad regulatoria, porque si falla la estabilidad regulatoria y las señales empiezan a distorsionar, con este cóctel que tenemos de tasas altas, TRS altas, se nos espanta la inversión y nos quedamos sin los kilovatios que son los que necesitamos. Así que te quería hacer como énfasis en esos temas. Creemos que hay una conversación fluida con puntos de vista diversos, no hay que negarlo, sobre muchos temas, pero que creemos que con una buena conversación y con los argumentos sobre la mesa podemos llegar a cosas que le beneficien al sistema y a los colombianos principalmente.
Muchas gracias, muy completo la verdad. Esperemos que así sea en esa última respuesta.
Esperemos que sí, Sebastián, pongámosle toda la fe.
Bueno, vamos ahora con la pregunta de Fernán González. Buenos días, muchas gracias por la presentación. Tengo dos preguntas. ¿Podrían entregar más detalles de la planta de AES en Panamá, por favor? ¿Por cuánto tiempo impactará la operación de Dos Mares? ¿Existe algún mecanismo de compensación o seguros involucrados que pueda mitigar? Eso fue sobre lo del tema de...
Sí.
Y segundo, entiendo, las centrales hidro pequeñas no están afectadas a la sobretasa del 3%. ¿Cuál es ese límite que define a una pequeña y una grande?
Perfecto, si quieres.
Listo. Entonces, Fernán, AES en Panamá es la central de generación STI, esos son 120 megavatios en la provincia de Chiriquí. Es la central que queda aguas arriba de nosotros y es la que, como mencionaba Ricardo en el guión, nos aporta el 90% del volumen que turbinamos en las plantas. Entendemos de la información que está disponible en el mercado que sufrió una inundación de casa de máquinas y eso es lo que la tiene por fuera de generación. ¿Cuánto esperamos? Por ahora la información que existe en el mercado de Panamá es una afectación que va a por lo menos lo que resta de este año y el primer semestre del próximo año, como la salida que ellos tienen planeada. ¿Estamos o no cubiertos? Sí, tenemos coberturas. Hay que recordar que nosotros no sufrimos daño, entonces digamos que las coberturas no son del mismo tamaño que en un siniestro en el cual hay un daño, pero tenemos unos seguros y obviamente también tenemos unas reclamaciones que estamos haciendo a través del mercado para mantener a la compañía totalmente indemne. Como cualquier reclamación es un tema de tiempo y en el corto plazo lo primero que anticipamos es menor generación y un menor resultado en el corto plazo. Esperamos que eso obviamente se revierta con los temas de seguros y con los temas de las reclamaciones pertinentes que estamos adelantando. Y el segundo punto es importante, tu pregunta es exactamente una pregunta que es parte de eso, es difícil entender la sobretasa, tal y como quedó redactada en el proyecto de reforma. No es que las centrales hidro pequeñas estén exceptuadas, sino que lo que quedó incluido en el texto es que cualquier generador hidroeléctrico con una utilidad neta inferior a un determinado valor de IVT no está sujeto a esa tributación. Pero realmente ese límite, estamos hablando de una sociedad que tenga una planta pues, de 2 megas. Sí, y una sola. No, pero pues uno que tenga solo una de 20 ya por ahí pasó hace rato en el límite de tributación. Pero eso que, pues, pero así como esas tenemos muchas otras preguntas de la forma como está redactada el texto específico de esa sobretasa.
Esta compañía, creo que somos CPM y nosotros los que más PCHs tenemos en el país. Creo que estamos cerquita nosotros de ser en términos de energía los que más tenemos. Le creemos mucho ese modelo, Fernando. Ese modelo, vean, hombre, cuando uno monta una central hidroeléctrica como la última que montamos, entre San Andrés de Cuerquia y San José de la Montaña. Estuvimos 3 años construyendo la central, 2 años construyendo la central y hubo pleno empleo en esa zona. La inversión social y ambiental que hacemos llegar allá es espectacular. Acuérdense que eso le sigue llegando una contribución para temas ambientales a esos municipios. Entonces, la verdad, hombre, llega una fábrica, llega una industria que de otro modo no llegaría a esas poblaciones que son bastante alejadas de los circuitos de las ciudades. Así que las PCH, las pequeñas centrales solares, todo lo que sea pequeño, hay que defenderlo y ojalá que tenemos señales del gobierno en positivo de que ese es un tema que lo tienen claro y que seguramente no lo van a afectar para beneficio de que estas inversiones se sigan haciendo en el país.
Muy bien. Una pregunta de Jorge. Dice, buenos días. ¿Qué le pueden decir a los accionistas? ¿Han pensado en una recompra de acciones para generar valor a las mismas? Gracias.
Jorge, sí, te agradezco la pregunta, muy preocupados con ese precio de la acción. Ese precio de la acción, pues, digamos, refleja mucha volatilidad de lo que estamos viendo en Colombia en este.
The price of this is related to the government change, and it reflects that it doesn't trade the topic of the fundamental value we have in these companies, and we are evaluating all the options, the possible options, to find out how can we give value or generate liquidity to the stakeholders, so our shareholders. And in this topic, we hope that in the next month we can have a new statement to frame this concern we have as administrators of your patrimony, and that will be the evaluation of the access. We're concerned about the value, and those were things that we talked about our management and there is concern, but we can do. So there we can find what we can do, and for sure we can give you information soon. Now, from Ricardo Sandoval, where is going to be the next idea of Hidroituango and tree stock on the collector? So that would be with the effect of the cost of the debt on work and currency, what would be the closing of the new projects and profitability of these new projects, right? The first question would be related to auctions. We need an auction, a really soon auction. The delays in works and units in Hidroituango, the delays in the collectors that are presented here, that there will be included another delay as a result of the community situation. The same delays we can see in the execution of projects in Guajira. In Guajira, we can see that there are companies that are developing projects that we can say that there are topics on blockages that are very, very complex. And for sure, that is delaying the start of this energy from the company. So the auction would be necessary for energy in 3 or 4 years. And we can hope that they will start soon. But we understand from the ministry, and they will take some time to analyze different data and some other auctions and situations. But we are convinced that Colombia needs to go to start with this auction. Esteban, why can we clarify this the topic related to profitability of new projects and the concern that we have today? Well, our profitability, we have always operated with a profitability that is really low. So that's what we said before, independently from what is happening in there. We started with a low profitability, sure, of course, agreed. I fix my language. We always ask a minimum of profitability to the projects and profitability, and we have always done that depending on the moment we are in. Previous conferences, we discussed about minimum profitability depending on the nature of the project, 12 and 16. In this moment, it is high, not twice as high as I was saying, but it's not a short term. And something important here of this profitability that I mentioned it before, or Ricardo mentioned before in the conference, was one of the questions that is in there, or part of the question, is that we can ensure funding in the long term. We can see funds in there, looking for good projects, finding new companies. Of course, we can see that. There's a specification in there, for sure. But to the extent that we can ensure these good funds, these good rates for the long term, the risk changes in an important way, and we can find out there that we can be more aggressive. For that reason, we can close our financing to move forward to our projects. So we can say if they are high, there's 12 or 15, because of the risk is not the same as a few months ago, but we can see that there's good financing in there. However, the most important challenge you can see the short term is having short terms and that are abroad and put it in the Colombian currency because of the current devaluation we have is a great challenge that we have in here. Great. I would say something 7, and in the short term, the demanding for the profitability, the volatility, and what we can see for the hardest rate that we can see in the projects, it's really, really high with the conditions that we have. And the cost of debt, we split it during many years, and that is the cost of debt that is really good. You know, now internationally it's really high, but we can go back to really normal. It's like it will help with debt. So thank you very much for your question. Well, we thank Gabriela Ponte, and there's another question related to the price of the price. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And what we wanted to show or transmit today is that the company still continues in a track despite of the volatility, and there are good results. And we are preparing for highest volatility scenario with a lot of the responsibility and the investment plans, as we can see, defending many questions that were made here that were really, really good, is conditioned to ensure that we are not going to take any unnecessary risk and continue with our creation gap. And we hope that we can see that reflected in the price of this. And the price of the stakeholders. And thank you very much to everyone, and have a wonderful closing of the year. Very good. Thank you so much to everyone.